computer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hold on. Recording. So I am very curious about you ever since you showed up on our Tao Eternally channel.
I know, it's fun group. I like it.
Yeah. So I wrote, like listening to you, I wrote down questions. So I actually went back and wrote down some things. And so first though, can I start off with the fact that I've had this very uncomfortable relationship with doctors in my life in the past.
You're not the only one.
Yes, yes. You know what it fundamentally is? I think from a very early age, I had the understanding that I was my own authority. So
beautiful.
So when I saw my parents reacting in very strange ways to doctors, and I thought, you know, my parents, you know, didn't even complete grade school. Okay, I think my mom had grade 3 and dad had maybe grade 1 or something. They are highly intelligent people. And I didn't measure for myself about education being the factor that I would surrender my authority. And so I have 3 degrees. I seem to be like
I noticed a couple of them.
Yeah. Okay. So, but the reason I did that, I didn't go back first for the first degree until I was 27. I traveled a lot.
Right.
So the reason though is because I didn't value education as a means of informing me. I valued more experiential travel, that kind of thing. And I knew that in order to be competitive, I'm wondering if this happened to you, in the marketplace, I had to play their game. So all along I knew this was just a game for me to get to do what I wanted. And
I can really relate to that because honestly, I've always had a very lighthearted approach to life and it has always felt like a game. And yet I went straight into university, but you know, still valuing experience. I just got curious. I was like, oh, what's this?
I picked up on that. We've got curiosity and we value experience as in informing.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. So what I want to say though is I didn't complete my last degree until I was 51.
Oh, that's so cool. Like what a unique journey that sounds like right there.
Okay. But this goes back to why I knew that they had an education, which they may have learned different things than me, doctors, that is.
Yeah.
But I knew that like I was the authority of my own body. And
I would love to have had you as a patient.
Oh my God.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, exactly. You're being sarcastic. I drove a lot of them crazy.
No, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm actually being authentic. I liked people who took agency. Wonderful. Because literally after 1 year, I was actually quite shocked that people would hand it over. Oh, whatever you say, doc. I'm like, oh, but there's choices here. And, you know, like you might make this one and I might make that one, you know, like really I could not talk people and it would take a long time. Like I thought, wow, this isn't efficient, but I have to do it this way. Like I wouldn't be quick to say, oh, I'm not going to make these decisions for you. I want you to be part of this. I want you to understand this. And you know, that's a difficult right there. That's huge. That is so huge.
It is.
It doesn't fit into 15 minutes very easily, I'll tell you.
No, I can imagine like with that time clock going, right?
Weird pressures.
Yes. That's how I chose the dude that I ended up choosing. I'm calling him a dude because he really was a dude, this doctor. Yeah. I chose him out of 6 doctors that I interviewed for the one to help me deliver my daughter. So they all thought I was nuts except for him. And he was so welcoming. He didn't care about the clock, but that meant if you
waited.
Yes, that meant that
I know it's a catch-22, isn't it? It's just, it's a really challenging art and science. And then when you start, I'll just say very briefly, I don't believe in science. And I think I came to that as I practiced and only for 5 years and finished full-time practice in 1997. So this is way back when. but I didn't actually firmly say it and feel it for myself until 2016. Just lighthearted. That's how I often will learn about myself. I'll just lightheartedly be saying something going, wow, I really feel that. And I was just saying to my family, we're having a chit chat about medical, blah, blah. And I said, I don't even believe in science. I just sort of, and then I realized I actually really mean that. And I kind of mean it as it presents functionally in our world today. But even in its purest sense, I'll just throw this out there because I actually, I made that one video that you watched, and that was August. The last month, I've been wanting to make a second video, and the theme was that I want to question the assumption that we even need science. And I know, of course, I'm on, obviously on a far end of the spectrum, but I kind of have I always like to develop either questions or analogies or metaphors to help us understand concepts that might not have been entrained into our little coconuts. And I love it. Just think of a hammer as a tool. A hammer is a tool. It's great for hammering in a nail. You could use it to pull out a nail. A lot of them have claws. And sometimes you could even use it to pound a steak. There's a few jobs that are so handy to have that hammer. But you're not going to use it to run your world and all your systems.
No.
I think we could use science as a tool if we chose. We actually don't need it. I really do have a narrative that would say we actually don't need it. But in order to do that, we would have to contemplate and explore what is a human being truly and what is reality, as I shared.
That was going to be one of my questions to you.
Yes.
I know you said a few things in that video about what you did think a human was. And, and there's a belief system that goes with that. So
it's right.
Yes.
I want to just share with you, I look at my hand and I look at my beliefs in them. This takes years of practice. So whatever I said in that video, I'm looking at on my hand saying, I'm not married to you. I can gently put you down anytime, so sometimes you do have to make a statement just to have a conversation too, right?
Yes.
So I'm not tightly gripped onto anything because I'll just share another little tidbit because I don't think about my medical practice that much, but somehow in relating with you, all these memories are popping up. But one memory I have that really surprised me at the time is I would just say, a person would come to you with whatever, and I'd say, you know what, I don't know. And they would be kind of shocked, but I could see they're excited and they loved me for saying it. And I'm thinking what, am I the only doctor that I don't know? But I think there is a bit of a habit of confabulating and pretending you know something when you actually don't. So I think I used to say I'm honest to a fault, but I think I'm just honest. I've now upgraded it to I'm honest. If I'm in my integrity and I don't know something, I'm sure as heck not going to pretend I do. So I would, they could see I cared. I'm like, I don't know. So then I, in my mind, have to think, okay, I'll either look it up, refer them, or, find a solution. But I would just state, I don't know. And how much I just over and over. So the more I saw this response, I'm like, wow, saying I don't know is the best thing I can say, because science doesn't back me up here, because it would be changing on a monthly, annual basis. The latest trend is now this. I'm like, oh, I told everybody that last year. Now this year, I'm wrong. I have to say something else, So I just got really tangled up and think, I don't know is the most honest answer. So anyways, sorry to interrupt.
So it sounds like you're very fluid, whatever.
Yes, I think fluid.
Yeah, you flow. So today, like you said, you could have this happening and then tomorrow that's not there anymore.
Yeah, yes.
It's definitely flowing, right? I like that. You said so many things in there. There's one thing that no, it's a lot to unpack for me. I'm analyzing and feeling all at the same time, right? So what I heard and what it spurned in me was, in our practice of social work at the master's level, this is such a funny story. At the master's level, the practice that I went into without even really knowing what it was called anti-oppressive practice.
Interesting.
I know. I was like, I only applied to one school for a master's program, and it's so competitive, right? And it said anti-oppressive, but okay, I just thought
whatever that means. I know what you mean.
Because that's
so you
how
intuitively
I feel.
Chose it. You just felt into it, and that's the one.
It came to me, actually.
I love that.
so I just thought, and I started, when I got in there, I thought, wow, this resonates with me. Do you know what one of the number one principles is? And you're going to laugh as a doctor.
Oh yes, please tell.
The number one principle was that the medical model of treatment was the most oppressive system.
Hallelujah.
I know.
Like, you see, I told you I respect social workers. That's amazing. Okay, tell me the year. I love to just go back and say, how long have we known this? How come we don't?
2012. I graduated in 2012, so not that long ago at 51.
That's still amazing.
I was the
They're
oldest
teaching
in my
at the
class.
master's level. They're
Yeah.
teaching at the master's level
Yeah,
that medical
yeah.
treatment is oppressive. Wow.
The medical model of treatment. So that meant the DSM, because that's part of the medical.
Right.
So
right.
do you know what? Another tenet was, you cannot generalize or make assumptions. And
Beautiful.
You must
Yes.
You must factor in and get to know your own biases.
Okay, so they're talking about you. Okay, yeah, you basically, I was thinking what I wanted to talk, that's what I wanted to talk about, because I think that is so fundamental and crucial. And then you bring up the DSM, for those who are not familiar, Diagnostic Statistical Manual of something. But literally, that book is pretty crazy. And I think even some of the people who are involved with publishing it have really come up and said, okay, this isn't science. It isn't science. Like, it really isn't. So the labeling is just ridiculous.
So can I just say what I've come to realize, and it keeps honing, like I keep getting more experiences that hone this to me.
Right.
All of those things, like the medical model of treatment, the DSM, they're all programming. And the programming is, there is something wrong with you. There's nothing fundamentally right about you.
And you'll never get better. And you'll never get better. And you need to take this pill for the rest of your life. So yeah, that's not very hopeful.
So that's a programming, right? Right at the,
yes.
So do you know, I want to just tell you quickly how I came to some of that awareness, and you can tell me yours too. I took a program with a woman on Facebook. Her name is Shanti Zimmerman.
Okay.
And her course is called The Clarity of Boundaries. So who could imagine what that actually meant?
Right, exactly. It's just, oh, that's intriguing. Okay, let's take the course.
So I took it and it changed my life. And that was only maybe 4 years ago. So, so what she basically said, her number one principle or philosophy, if you want to call it that, is that she called it conditioning. But I'm extending that now to programming, because that's what I think it is. I think conditioning is a nice word. Programming is, we've been lied to and fucked over, and it's big. Conditioning is like, oh, you've been conditioned like a perfect sculpture. You know, we've
you know the word I prefer? Entrained. Entrained. And I used it. I really entrained, like entrained. There's like a vibration. Zzz, buzzes, you know what I mean? So you're entrained into it. Like, programming is a little bit edgy, but at the same time, I hear you. I know what you're saying, and I don't disagree. You know, that's the other thing about me that I'll just share with you, is that I love the analogy of when you think of the beautiful, huge diamond, multifaceted, all the facets that a beautifully cut diamond would have.
Yes.
I see, like, I call it dragonfly vision, but you know how we all create our own vocabulary and no one knows what the heck we're talking about. But what I'm talking about there is just like, from every facet, there's a view, and it's all true. So like, you know, I find, especially this week, I just feel like everything I've heard, I'm like, oh yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, I agree. And it's all over the place, right? I'm like, oh, I agree. Because I choose to collaborate. I've self-chosen beautiful souls to collaborate with. But you know, I can hear two different perspectives. I'm like, oh, I agree. And I'm like, what do I think? It doesn't matter, you know, like, does it? But it's just cool for me. I love this. It's kind of a dynamic flexibility and perspective. Like, there's so many perspectives.
That's beautiful, because I think I might have the similar dynamic. I listen to lots of people. I research all different voices. So
yeah, I enjoy hearing a diverse narrative, because I don't want to be entrained into one, but I do also take time to focus on my own vibe. But we're swimming in the soup of all these vibrations. So God help us all. It's every man or woman for himself, but we're all connected. So like you can try to swim to the surface, but they're dragging you down by your ankles every which turn.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I've got all these analogies. Yeah.
Ranty and I talked about that. And you know what his analogy,
he wouldn't mind.
No, I called him that online, so he's familiar.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
So his analogy is the pot with the lobsters in it. So all the lobsters are in there, and
it's crabs in the bucket. Isn't that the better? Crabs in the bucket. You don't have to put a lid on it because all the other crabs will pull them down.
That's basically what he's saying. There's one lobster that gets it. Like, it's getting pretty hot in here. I think I'm not
here.
Survive, so I'm going to go to get out of here. And then all the others are saying, no, this is the place we should be. Feel it. It's wonderful. Blah, blah, blah. So that's the analogy he uses. I love it.
I say that partly because I think we're all broken. I'm going to use quotation marks, but we're going to integrate ourselves to the best of our ability and
I'm
better
use
together.
A different word. I don't like broken.
Okay, tell me what you like. But I say broken with quotations.
I like fragmented because.
Okay, I do. I prefer fragmented. You've won me over already.
Yeah, because broken implies that we need to be fixed, that we're just not okay the way
yes,
we are.
You're right. I just have a close girl who uses it, and you're right.
Angele, we are okay. We're not broken.
Absolutely.
So what Shanti taught, the woman I talked about, she taught resilience. She said, what if you looked at people as though they were powerful, not broken? What if you worked with them as though they were powerful, they knew what was going on? Like the other day, I'm skipping all over the place. The other day, a client—
I'm following you.
Okay, good. The other day, a client said to me, well, what do you think I should do? And I turned that around and I said, you know what? It's completely your choice and you get to decide. So I'm not going there. That's up to you. I'm going to say you have the power to decide and choose for yourself. I'm not going to say, oh, I need to rescue you because you're broken and you need to be fixed and here's my prescription.
Or you're going through a tough time, so I need to help you make this decision. I mean, that would be a common choice I'm sure some therapists make.
Well, she literally asked me. Like no one has literally asked me, what should I do? But when she did that, my gut just went, you know what? It's up to you to decide and you have complete choice over what you do with yourself. So choose wisely.
That's beautiful.
That's from a non-broken place. So the way I see fragmentation, oh my God, somebody said this the other day too. I don't know if you saw the interview I did with Ashton Tulip Campbell on Dow.
No, I didn't see that one yet.
She's a sister seer. Anyway, what I want to say is she explained to me in the quantum. So here's 3D.
Right. Yeah.
Here's 4D, 5D, the quantum, right? Quantum is up there somewhere. I'm saying there because it's everywhere, but there.
Yeah.
She said in the quantum that she defines trauma. I thought this was so cool, as fragmented geometry.
Okay, I do like that. No, I really am taking on fragmented to replace what I said. I love it.
No, but when she said fragmented geometry is sacred.
Right.
And so at that multidimensional level, when you're operating, I guess, in 5D in the quantum field, it's about the geometry. Like everything internally is sacred geometry. So if you cut one of our vessels, apparently the design inside the vessel is the flower of life, sacred geometry. So I thought this was so cool. So in our bodies, it's replicating. It was designed after sacred geometry internally.
Right.
And so if any of the strands that lead to sacred geometry pattern is off, and that's the fragmentation. That's the piece that needs to be come back to the whole, to be gathered back as not a fragment, but as back to the whole, the home.
Right.
In the geometry. and she draws them. So when she works with the
very
client,
cool.
she draws the geometry and then says, can you see this line in the sacred geometry is off? That's the fragment that you have to pull back into the whole.
Oh, cool.
I
Is
know.
she talking about genes, or she's just talking about sort of their holistic?
Oh God,
field?
that's a good question.
But
I'm not
I'll look
sure.
into it and I'll
I'm
see
not
what I
sure,
think.
but apparently, yeah, we're patterned after all these sacred geometry patterns in our DNA. The
Right.
tree of life, the flower of life, there's all these patterns. And they're not random. They're purposeful.
Right.
I don't know why I went there. Okay, so sorry, I'm just going to go back to Shanti. Shanti's principle was society as a whole wanted to understand how they could control the population to get them to behave. In a sense, it became all about measuring people's behavior. So we don't want people to rob the store, so we're going to put laws in place that if you do that, there's a consequence and a punishment in society. So it started with, how do we get people to behave the way we want to? And so laws were incorporated based on people's behaviors. So guess what the parental unit did? The parental unit took all of that in. We must get our children to behave, because if they don't behave, they're going to end up in jail. They're going to end up an addict. They're going to end
very
up...
pessimistic thoughts, right?
Yes,
like let's worry about all the things that can go wrong.
Yes, but it's also a conditioning from the negative side. Like you said, we don't think about what can go right. We think about what can go wrong. So,
and you know what I want to add here, for some reason I'm feeling to add, is that I'm a French Canadian, so I mean, bless me.
Hallelujah.
But I feel like that comes from an English mindset. Because I honestly think one of my gifts is that I was born into a French Canadian family. And so there's something so beautiful about the way we raise our children. I mean, I don't mean to toot my horn, but I mean, I really benefited from, having maybe a little bit less of that kind of mindset in my growing up years. And of course, then I was on my own little path, I had my kids quite a bit later. I didn't have my first kid till I was 31. So by then I'm a free spirit and I'm going to see what my kids are, I'm really curious and excited to see who they are, and let them play and give them experiences and notice what they like and give them more of that, so it's a very different way to raise a kid.
Angele, sorry.
No problem.
Angele, do you think then that it's cultural and not the uniqueness of the generations of people in your family, like the uniqueness of your parents?
It's really, exactly. I don't know, because I mean, that's a really big interest for me. Like I have many arms of passions, and one of them I've titled Authentic Family, with this is the idea of, I feel like I'm even ready to go out and start, meeting people one-to-one, group, whatever. And I think I feel what I seem to have naturally developed is an ability just to look at context, but like with all those facets, right? Like, so, I mean, that's a good question. You really are hitting the nail on the head. I don't know if it's just my particular family would come via the earliest settlers from France came to Canada, then the earliest homesteaders. So I'm a homesteader. So that's a subgroup of French Canadians, right?
Yes, yeah.
So I often have wondered, okay, why did those initial ancestors leave France? One theory I've heard is taxes. I'm like, oh, taxes, we're out of here. I don't know. I really don't know the history of that.
They understood about it, yeah.
But I mean, with the homesteader, it was about, hey, for 25 cents, you got a plot of land. It's all yours. So boom, there was a whole crew of people who came, and that's my background from all four directions. I had great-grandparents who homesteaded, and then they had their kids, stayed in the same small Saskatchewan town, farmers. Wow. So there's farmers, right? So that's what I think is really, I love, of course, you're a social worker, you notice, that's what I want to see more of in, I think there's just such a, here's a little snippet. As I was working my 5 years of fancy practice, I just noticed everyone wants to take the cream off the top, cream off the top, cream off the top. Let's do a cookie cutter, little slip you in and call you this and that, done. 15 minutes, bye-bye, like what? But when you really want to look at the full context and container of a human being, like these nuances, I personally love it. I just do. So I could just see myself working with someone, and you need to find all of the relevant cultures that are a part of their life. And so they can explore and be aware of the influence they each had. So I think you do make a good point to say French and English, but you know what? I was born to a family where the Anglophone Francophone wars were a bit alive in this small town in Saskatchewan. Like when you're a Francophone, you're a Francophone, and when you're an Anglophone, you're an Anglophone. So it's a little horrific to my grandmother that I am an Anglophone, but French is my first language. So anyway, it's all happens, and we are who we are.
How many generations of Canadians are there in your lineage?
I haven't totally counted, even though someone does have that access. But I mean, the earliest settlers from France, from what I understand, like we're talking 1700s. So like I've been in Canada. My family and ancestors have been in Canada for a long time, hundreds and hundreds of years.
Wow.
So there's that. Like, who knows? And then there's, genetics. Genes alone maybe don't tell the whole story. You've got your own soul, your own natural, I do believe in reincarnation, whether that means, like, I guess because I've had my own experience, I don't know if that means I have lived this life or that life, but I do connect to the energies of that life lived. Does that make sense?
Yes, I have so I grew up on a farm, so there's another cha-ching between us. And,
right.
And I do have this pioneer thing. I don't know if that's a past life or whatever, but I do feel that I pioneered. I can even see myself surrounded by children in a corset with the,
Is that right? Yeah, very cool.
So, okay, so that sounds pretty amazing. My parents came here. I'm first generation Canadian. And
Is that right?
My parents came here for exactly the land of opportunity, Canada. We can get a piece of land, call it ours, work the land, farmers, right?
Yeah.
And so definitely I have that in common with you. So I'm sorry, I've got asthma and it's really right now. Okay, so what I just excuse me, I might have to get some water.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead. Like,
yeah, thank you.
That's no problem. And I'll do the same. Yeah.
I'm right here, and there's a washroom right there, which is great.
Oh, you bet.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no problem.
So what I wanted to just continue with is that, society at large started wanting to shove down this idea that we had to get people to obey and behave based on their behavior. So the family unit was like, oh my God, what are we going to do to get these children in line? We don't want them to be a consequence of this system, right?
Right. Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid.
Yeah, you know what they figured out was the fastest way to control children's behavior. You know what you do?
What do you do?
You blame, shame, and guilt them.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And so they end up doing it to themselves after the program.
Yeah, that's right. It's a self-propagating. You don't have to just water it after that. You plant the seeds and water them.
A smack on the butt, the physical abusive stuff, stop them in their tracks temporarily. But if you want to really fuck with your children, and I'm saying it in a very
sinister I know what you're saying. Yeah,
I'm saying it in a sinister way. I'm not saying that everything was totally conscious, but I don't think parents thought, oh my God, we've got to program our children. I think
it was done to them, so they do it as well.
Yes,
right.
So her clarity of boundary course is unpacking your blame, shame, and guilt, and how it's operating within you, and how once you catch yourself doing that, you stop operating. And when you stop shaming, blaming, and guilting yourself, the freedom to operate as an authentic, sovereign person standing in yourself, once you clear out all that junk of blame, shame, and guilt, You get
Absolutely.
to more of the core of who you are and what
Agree,
you
agree, agree.
want.
So
So
yeah,
that's,
speaking of shared cultures, so my mom was a social worker, so she did all that. She
you
did
said
all
she
that.
ended up going to be a lawyer too.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating because I just listened to my mom, like, we're French Canadians. We sit around the table for 2 hours after dinner. So like that was my growing
Wow.
up, I just loved it. So I learned, you teach by stories. So she'd tell story. And then I remember like she finished her law degree when I was in grade 11. That was 1983. And she just said that in her work as a social worker, she felt like her hands were bound. There's so many rules and rule books and no power. Not that she needed power, but I mean, she just felt powerless to the point where she felt she could help better by becoming a lawyer. But it's pretty cool because I know a lot of people will instill a lawyer. Like she got a little sick of that. Like they assume you're, conniving, manipulative, but she was a social worker first. And so she kind of
Yes.
did she was a general lawyer, but she did a lot of family law and she was so well suited for it. And like, how many times have I heard in my own ears how much she helped so many people, with cases that other lawyers are like, nah, that's messy, that's girl stuff, or like leave it to the social workers. Well, it's quite, yeah. So I got to learn how the systems were pretty weird. And I think my mom's last job as a social worker, she thought she'd try to go to a hospital, and so she was working in the Royal Alec Hospital here in Edmonton in the women's pavilion, and she said no one would ever consult her. So she'd sit around all day, and that drove her nuts. So then she went to law school. So like, it's so weird. Like, here's this beautiful resource was sitting there not being used.
Yes.
Because there, and I'll just throw in one of my other favorite little pet theories, but observations: the overwhelmed caregiver. We are in the era of the overwhelmed caregiver in the home, in the family setting, in the professional settings, but especially in the professional settings. They are so overwhelmed. They can't help you. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. Not that they all are. There are some beautiful souls. Obviously, they're attracted to this field, but you get so overwhelmed and discombobulated. Like as a family doctor, there was sort of what do you call it? A culture of how you would practice that would give no room for sick people. Like, think about that. I remember thinking like, well, if I do that and someone's actually sick, I won't have room to put them in. So like, it was kind of like a big deal. Just leave 3 spots open. Like, because
so
otherwise
many limitations.
Right. And I'm thinking, well, if someone's sick and they can't get in to see you, what the frick am I doing here?
Yes. Well, do you think it would make sense to go back to the time when doctors came to your home?
I've done home visits because I just love experiences. Because I actually thought, of course you learn a ton, get your eyes wide open. But in the end, you know what it was? It was a manipulative patient. I got taken, but
yes.
It's okay. I don't mind. It was an experience.
Okay.
I'll try most things once. I always like to say, I'll try most things once, but like, it's not that efficient. But the truth is that whole model, like, we may have to just put it down, like, I've thought for decades, how can we fix this? And there are a million different good ideas, but there's a million roadblocks too.
Yes.
And a big one just being the strong lobby of physicians. There's such a strong lobby at the legal level. And you take their money away, they're like a bulldog on a bone,
Yes.
like, come on. My big question as a person of the public, because I'm a retired physician now, is this good value for our money? And I would say, no, it isn't. It's very poor use of money.
But if you listen to Randy, there's an abundance of money. It's all created. So there's no.
And I totally agree with all that. No, there isn't. However, we don't want to be futile and inefficient with our resources, do we? And then the other thing that you brought up that I'll just bring us back to is just that concept of, I love to use the word facilitator, like just to be generic, like someone who comes to you for help. There's a facilitated and a facilitator. Well, that facilitator does have to have a certain capacity and understanding and self-awareness. So I think that's what you brought to me through your training, whereas I didn't get trained in that. Actually, someone recommended this book called The Resilient Physician. So I'm like, I'm reading that. Boom. I read it. And I'm like, holy shit. That was my wake up. I read that, and it was written by psychologists. I was married to a doctor. I'm no longer married, and he had nothing. Oh, those psychologists are always doctor bashing. And I'm like, I see myself in this. This is true. Like, so it was just kind of
Oh,
uncomfortable, inconvenient. And then that same author, and I forget the name of the author, wrote The Medical Marriage. And I read that one and went, holy shit. That didn't last much longer after that. But anyway, like, wow.
wow.
So it's not
So
like we
this is
don't
what it
know.
sounds like. Can I say it's so
Absolutely.
interesting that because you love experience,
I sure
you
do.
you try different things until
Yeah.
it's just proved to you that it doesn't work for you. So
Yeah,
you'll
that's right.
try to be a doctor, you'll try the marriage, and then what do you think about that? Does that sound
No, that is true. But but I was also like, as much as my family and my upbringing was beautiful and creative and quite expansive in some ways, there was an entrainment, and especially with the marriages for life. So I actually stuck around that marriage probably a good 6 years longer, just thinking, well, and then you go into sometimes these different spirituality. Well, if you can love anyone, and I started kind of like, okay, but then I really banged around for a few years there.
do you
Just
know a lot
with
of
not
people
having the
do? You're not
courage, not to
alone.
have the courage, and then not wanting, I really cared for this person, so I'm not going to drop them by the wayside. And of course, actually, I've never really used this word to talk about my former marriage partner, who I call my parenting partner. Like, not I say narcissism with a small n, but just that whole idea of kind of yes honey, and I really wasn't recognizing how unmotivated or unwilling he was to really be even wanting to take the time to talk about it, so there'd be sort of lip service, lip service, lip service. And I'm a pretty loyal person. So I have to
Yeah.
commend myself for that. But anyway, that was kind of a sad chapter, really.
Yes, most endings are. But
Yeah. But when you prolong it over 6 years, that's not very smart.
you
And then when
know
I
what?
finally,
Don't
I
beat yourself
remember,
up. Don't
no,
beat
I
yourself
don't.
up because
But I also love myself because I say, look how tender and beautiful. I'm so optimistic. I'm so, faithful. I'm not going to drop someone like a hot potato the minute things are tough. I was willing to do the work, and
yes,
he wasn't. He
yes.
just wasn't. And it's okay.
So you learned about tenacity,
Yes, I
loyalty.
did. Yeah, actually, I'm pretty loyal. I
Yeah.
was, and I still am. Like, I mean, I kind of was a little bit of a salesman. I sold them on, hey, this is a good idea. I'll never forget. Like, you get those moments where you almost feel like you're going to pass out because it's just obviously your hormones are just going crazy, releasing out into your body because you're, going into new ground. So that moment, December 2009, I want a divorce. Just to say that, it's like, like I was just so
Wow.
afraid to
It's
have the courage to just carry
the
on.
consciousness meeting the mind, right? It's
Right.
the
My mind is
consciousness.
powerful. And I was having a lot of reluctance, but I just said it. And then he didn't move out of the house till like 16 months later. So, I'd made the decision and, one last try, go to counseling. And then this is a therapist who did me a great service. We didn't go to very many, maybe second session. And she said, Angele, sounds like you're waiting to hear permission, to have permission to leave. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. See ya. But
Once you get it, it's like a boom.
Yeah, it was a kaboom. But anyway,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
worth talking about because I think, I imagine right now there's a lot of people kind of navigating that terrain, and it's challenging.
Yes. Do you know what? Especially since we're locked in with each other
I
and
know.
we're
I was thinking
spending
about
all
that.
that time, right? That we didn't spend before. Maybe the time
Yeah.
apart kept us together.
Well, exactly. And I think I've actually learned one of the huge things I learned from marriage is I had him wearing every hat, every relationship hat I needed. I put on his head. Poor man. So I can
Mhm.
take ownership for that. Like, you need a best friend, girlfriend, like you need a go out and dance friend, like honestly, I'm a doctor. I was indoctrinated, but I had this concept that he could play all those roles for me. And so that was not
Mm.
fair. And so
Yeah, that's
someone gave me that, and I'm like, yeah, that's true. You hear truth, you feel it. And
yes, it
now I know
resonates,
better.
right? Truth
Yeah.
resonates.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that's another programming. Lots of people are
Yeah. I think it
programmed to
is.
think that you're supposed to get married, have babies, buy the house, uh,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
There's a whole plan set out for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
When
It's
did you
it's tough.
figure out when did you figure out like that we were being lied to and this was all kind of I know you call it differently, but I'm going to call it
Yes.
programming. When
Okay.
did that veil when did that veil happen where you thought, wow, science is lying to us, uh history is lying to us, TV is lying to us, government is lying to us, uh like everything.
You know what's so funny? Like I would say even 15 years ago, I came to call the unsustainable system of systems. So I looked around and just saw, in some ways, that old francophone bias comes out sometimes, like maudit anglais, meaning damn it French, English, damn it English. Like maudit anglais is kind of sad, you know.
Yes.
And I heard it a lot growing up. Maudit anglais, meaning damn it English. Like look at you English thinking people doing all these stupid things and not like fixing it or improving it or upgrading it. Like I could see the need for upgrade for 15, 15, 20 years, fine. But as far as actually thinking someone was doing this, like I always had just felt like, oh, this just happened unconsciously. I would say it's only like in the last 2 years where I might say, wait a minute, and that's pretty shocking. And it takes time to get that percolating through your cells to think. And I'm still not saying I know, but it sure is. It's getting, now that I see this mask and this lockdown and the way this narrative is being so narrow and everyone's just taking it, lapping it up like it's ice cream. That's where I say, wow, it's pretty hard to make a case that we're not being brainwashed, programmed from some small percentage of people who are consciously aware of what they're doing. So I've never felt that until really the last year. So it is what it
Wow.
is. I'm a naive little optimistic
No,
girl.
no, no. Listen, for me, it was
And some people are
maybe
20
five.
years in, right?
Sorry?
Some people have 20 years of that kind of
I
thinking.
know.
And that's poison in a way.
I have a friend who was in education and woke up 20 years ago. But you know what happened?
Whoa.
There was nobody kind of around her that was at the same place. So it caused a huge depression and trauma. And
I know.
she was in bed
I
literally
see
for
that.
10 years.
I think there's a lot of people that's their story. Like it's just too soon. So I actually
Yeah.
have to say I'm very grateful. Like really my hugest version of the awakening happened in 2012. And I wouldn't even call myself awakened, like whatever that means. But I mean, I
Yeah.
was on sort of a journey of self-actualization. Like I literally had that focus and I just had something really dramatic happen in October 2012, which allopathic medicine calls psychosis. So, the altered state of consciousness, which was
Yes.
huge,
Yes.
huge, huge, huge.
Yes.
But I mean, all the solutions that poured into my brain, I was pretty damn excited. Like it kind of makes sense because it was kind of like shown that the hospitals were empty. Everyone will just do what they feel to do. And I'm like, wow, yeah. After 20 years of saying, oh, unsustainable system of systems, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? How do we fix it? But when you ask that question over and over and over, it's like all the answers came pouring in all at once, and I mean, it was physically overwhelming because my body just wasn't used to that, whatever that was. And this was after 3 past life regressions in 1 week against all good judgment. But that happened.
Wow.
And I learned, of course, it was pretty cool to go in as a patient, involuntary patient. And then I looked around and I locked down the solutions for that little system too. Where I have experience, I can find solutions. Boom.
Man, but can we put any of these solutions into practice? Because I know you're all about change. That was one of the messages I got.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how we can change things. Let's have a conversation about that. So you have all the ideas, right?
I know.
But so is it possible to implement?
Well, of course, I believe it is, but I feel like the biggest missing ingredient is willingness. We do have to make a group agreement.
That.
Yeah, like I guess like I have a website, beauvert.ca, and it says where willingness is the only requirement. I'm kind of playing around with all my concepts because one of them is credentials, schmedentials. I love your credentials, but at the same time, they alone will not get you too far, right? And same with mine. I laugh at my own. I have a view. I was so proud of my little medical degree. I framed it all nice, and I actually took a picture of it. But I mean, it really is like, you get a little comic in your bubble gum when you're a kid. I mean, They're equivalent at this
Yes.
point.
Yes. Oh my God. So yes,
That's
I
why,
knew, you know how I knew that I saw smart people in my family that had no education,
me
like
too. Like my
brilliant people.
grandfather, oh my God, my
Yes.
grandma, grade 5, whatever. They knew what, I think abundance. I love this definition of abundance, knowing what you need to know when you need to know it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, really, if he's a farmer, he needs to learn how to fix his machines. Well, he learned. And he needs
Yes.
this, he learned.
Yes.
And he did this, he can
Yes.
do that. He doesn't have to ask anyone. And sometimes he asks for help, but mostly he did what he needed to do when he needed to do it. It's like, what an
Yes,
awesome
but the fact
exemplar.
that our system has privileged higher education as the only way to really compete
Yes.
bugs the shit out of me.
It bugs me too. But you know what else it does, Ida, is it in all these white collar educated people, like I actually had a little, in the last year, I watched some movie called The Little Big Farm. And I had this big
Oh,
panic attack inside my body going, oh, I can't sustain myself. I could not grow my own food, and I'm
I've
actually
had
really
that
into growing
too.
food.
I've had that panic
Yeah.
too.
Like, I mean, obviously as a collective, we can all do our jobs, but at the same time, with the way things are going, you think, I want to learn how to grow a few things because who knows, so I'm
Oh
growing
my
some
God,
food.
we're on that page too, because
Yeah.
I want to get out of where I am and buy
Mhm.
something where I can have my own garden. If I want a few goats, I have a few goats and
Yeah.
chickens, right?
Yeah.
But there is that part of me that thinks I've done everything on my own. I even took my child home from the hospital alone. Like I've done everything
Is
alone.
that right?
It was
Wow. A
scary as
lot of
shit,
us. Yeah.
scary as shit. So, but now as I tell me if this is happening to you, now as I'm getting more finite in my body, like my body is slowing down, the hormones have gone, it's finite. This container to me feels finite, and I'm noticing it more and more. And as that's coming in, I'm getting this fear now about I can't do this for very much longer on my own. How am I going to have a garden? How am I going to mow
Right,
the lawn?
right.
How am I going to sweep the driveway? How am I?
Okay, yeah, that's beautiful. I actually don't get that, but
Mm,
I do have a great grandma who was gardening till she was 100. Like these bodies, if we treat them right, and I do believe in youthing, and we're gonna get stronger, more resilient, but the interdependence thing too, right?
yes.
I really don't know how the future is gonna go, but if worst came to worst and there wasn't a big wake up in the collective narrative, where we start really saying, okay, is this relevant? We need to broaden our scope and let's look for solutions. If we're not going to get that, then let's say we're going to splinter off into little sub communities of interdependent. And,
Yeah.
if you have your basic needs met, and the more, the trouble is, I think we're all sort of like a little traumatized by, so it is a little bit hard to get those relations started. And I've actually tried. I have a property and fallen on its face a few times.
Aw,
But I mean, I learned, hey,
you're
there's an
learning.
experience. I'm learning. And of course, I'm as edgy as the next person. We're all human. We all did our best. But
Yes.
I do see like such a new dawn coming, and it's just
Okay, so with that new
so
dawn, can I
nice.
ask you, have you heard of these med beds that everybody's
Oh,
talking about?
absolutely. Oh, I
So,
do. I have.
how are you feeling about those? Or what do you feel
Well, I
is
mean,
going
that
on?
narrative that I've heard, that I really love the perspective that they've been withheld. They're available right now. I
Yes.
personally, that would, if I were to have my number one choice of job right now, that would be it. Because what I understand about them too is I think well, I've heard different perspectives, but the one that resonates the most with me is the idea that, yes, they're a technology, but they do need a consciousness to interact with that technology. And I think,
That's so
I shouldn't
cool.
say I think, I feel that how many of us are even at that capacity yet? I actually think I'm there, getting there, or very close. And I want
Yeah,
to be there. I've been
yeah,
focusing on that
yeah.
because, like, hey, like this is a shit show. If you know that there's that kind of, but the other thing too is even higher, like there's always another layer. But the other layer, and I have a really cosmic friend, and he said, oh, Angele, forget about those med beds. You are the med bed. Technology. Like, let's learn how to work this machinery here. Here it is. I'm figuring it out. I don't know. I'm doing the best I can. And the idea that once If you can get one person to pop up on the surface of that water, it'll just fall like dominoes after that. So
Yeah.
I keep my eye, like I literally have my finger on that freaking pulse, so many pulses, and it gets a little obsessive sometimes, but I'm not aware of that exemplar existing yet, but it's right around the corner. And I mean, I think what's happened is whenever one tried to pop up, boom, it's not easy. So now we need a group of us to pop up at once, and I'll be in that group. I know it.
Wow. I love that. See, I don't have the same kind of confidence about that.
Well, I do, partly because I've been focusing on it for 15 years, and I've fallen on my face big time as well. But you get a chance to contemplate and wonder why. And I do communicate with galactics as well. So, I see people go out there.
Peeps? Do they have a name?
Well, it started out Arcturian. Arcturians really helped me. I think they were the main ones to help me kind of through the worst of it. And Pleiadians. So now, because like Arcturians, I can't face to face with them. It's just not in the near future. Whereas the Pleiadians are not that different than us in a lot of ways. Yes. And so I've been matched up with an individual, and I communicate with her. I don't know when, and I don't know how.
Well, I hear that they're here. Aren't they here on the Earth?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're in orbit. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, there's times when she says, "Oh, I'm here in the room." I'm like, "I don't see you." I don't see you, but I feel her. Like I'm really clairsentient and claircognizant. And that sounds arrogant to say, but I finally am that's how I feel. I mean, how do these ideas get in my head? Boom, they're there, and then you just feel it.
It's the consciousness. I think it's the consciousness raising. Yeah,
I mean, it's
rising.
Consciousness. Yeah, I mean, you can get really scientific and physicsy about it. And I actually want to do that. I don't really have the skills myself. I've been calling in, who's a physicist who wants to work on this? And I know they exist in the world. Like I thought I was bringing up a new term, physics of consciousness, but I Googled it and it's been used all the time. So like nothing is new. There's nothing new. Yeah. So I know, and that's it. Like I even have a page called Physics of Consciousness because I have 21 Facebook pages and 2 websites. Because if I have a passion, I just make a Facebook page about it. Yeah. Some of them are more therapy, soul connection things like cooking. Cooking is one, Curious Herbivore, and there's movie medicine, Music is the Doctor, Bovera Studio, which is about sound healing, and like everything. But that's how my mind works. Like I've long said, even back, after I retired from medicine, my marriage partner was a surgeon, eye surgeon, opened a center. So I'd help out, in different clerical, legal, accounting ways. But I always said, there's no problem that a spreadsheet can't solve. And I stand by that. But now, you see, let me share this fun little, because I think on this line of talking, so maybe I'm conceptual and I don't have the exact how-tos yet, but I think when you start sharing, you start collaborating, and you just find your actions. There'll be someone that will
pick that up. They'll say,
right.
Here, let me think about that and let me see what I can,
But I think I often say, raise the stage, change the conversation. I mean, here we have this whole allopathic medicine based on meat and bones and chemistry and genetics. Whereas there's all these other axes, like when I talk about spreadsheet, well, for a human body, I think we need a multidimensional spreadsheet. How many, like, can you imagine a line, like a whole ball of lines, like all together?
Yeah.
So
that's
that each
geometry.
One of those, like each one of those is an axis that's relevant to our health, our multidimensional anatomy. Yeah. And we are only talking about 3 of them or 4 of them, like we've got a lot more of them. So I think it's just being willing to expand our awareness and understanding. And of course, we don't have language for this, but there'll be a day when we just telepathically, like I do.
I believe that too.
That way. And I do even with you. Like, I don't,
cool.
Like I know what you're saying. And I see that a lot of people think, oh, I got to explain all these words. But no, I get you. I got it. I already got it.
You got even the feeling,
as
the
you're
resonance.
saying it. Like it's not just the words, right? I call it fluent in intention. So, I mean, you got to find words for it. And,
what a creator you are. You and Randy need to create together.
Yes, I know, because that's where I saw Randy. I'm like, oh, there's a kindred spirit.
I saw that too. I actually said that to him. I think you and her.
Well, I know. Well, we've got each other's phone numbers now, so we're going to connect.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and so he's like 3 hours drive away. And where are you? I kept meaning to ask where location geographically.
I'm in Ontario, Canada. Where are you?
I'm Edmonton, Alberta.
Oh, you're close to him.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Yeah.
where, like, we have mutual friends. So I was
Oh,
introduced to
good.
his work just through a friend sharing it. And I'm like, oh, that looks like a cool guy. And then even his son, just seeing his son sharing on YouTube, I'm like, okay, there's a good man, because he helped that son to develop. So,
Uh,
I'm really into that kind of stuff.
Very cool. So I want to ask you, because I'm looking at our time
Yeah, you're
and
right.
I've
We
I've
can
got
go.
to do something. So I want to ask you, so what's next for you? Like, I know that you like to follow what comes
I
into your
know,
space.
exactly. And it's time to, I think I can answer that because I've really been thinking about it. Enough of the putting your fingers on all the pulses, what's, to actually share. And I always had a hard time describing it, but now I have a way to describe. I'm willing to start reaching out to offer, if anyone wanted to collaborate, because I think my way of doing it would be unique. Like I have sort of medical intuition coming in. I have just intuition in general, which everyone has. But when you put two heads together, you've got an amplified field.
Yes.
And, I had someone who helped me who actually comes, I don't know if you know Ramana Maharshi, an Indian sage, and then
Sorry. No, I
Papaji.
don't.
So, I mean, it just happened that a Papaji kind of lineage. So I basically feel like I'm a Ramana Maharshi, even though because I had such a huge support and stabilization from what I call my therapist, but really she was a very spiritual, beautiful, integrated woman coming through many different ways. But anyway, she helped me so much and she really, because I always want to be friends with whoever I worked with. And she kind of held that boundary and said, you do need someone to focus on you, and she really drove that home. And I guess I've been so reluctant to share myself. And I think it's just because it just wasn't stable enough. And I feel now it's like I'm ready. I'm as ready as I need to be. I'm as integrated as I need to be. I'm as integrated as I am, I should say. It's not a judgment. Like I'm as integrated as I
No.
am. I'm a sincere human being who could meet another sincere human being and we could collaborate and do some good stuff together. I do have so many tools on the tool belt. It's ridiculous, but
I'm
I
going to
tend to
think
use them
about,
very creatively. I use them very creatively. Like
yes.
my latest one was family constellation therapy. Wow. What a
Wow.
beautiful, beautiful therapy. Ooh.
Wow.
But I used it in my own way. And I thought of how I was going to do it. And then boom, a really famous guy in that circle, he's from Germany and his name is escaping me right now, but he came and did a workshop in town. I'm like, oh my God, he's working exactly how I thought I would do it. So anyway, but at the same time, I have a hard time because of all these passions, focusing down to one, choosing
Mm.
one. But
Mm.
now the way the context of the world is like, okay, maybe start one-on-one, just start one-on-one or group, small group. You can't make these things happen, but I'm open to do that now.
Yeah. I'm thinking about how we could collaborate. I'm going to have to put some thought into that
Yeah,
and feeling into that.
I feel I'd like to.
Yeah.
It's really fun chatting with you.
Well, that's why I reached out to you because I thought, there's, when I went back and listened to the video of yours, I thought
Yeah.
there's so much. That's what I meant by, you asked me, what did you mean by unpack? And I thought it's so
Well, I kind
rich.
of knew what you meant, but I was
Yeah.
curious as to your response because you know what? I kind of recognize I've been pretty shy to share because I can be so many things. I'm
Yes.
a chameleon, right? So I sometimes forget who I am. I'm so adaptable and versatile. It's a little
Yes.
crazy making. It's a little crazy making
It
sometimes.
can be. I think, well,
Yeah.
I understand some of it because I think I'm like that too. I can put
Yeah.
my hand in so many pots,
I
really,
know.
and I can have conversations on lots of different subjects
Yeah.
like yourself. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's confusing because I
Yes.
feel so fragmented. I feel fragmented,
Right. But you know
right?
what I finally decided for myself is that I really enjoy a variety in my life. And I don't see myself 9 to 5ing it at any one thing.
No, I can't
My
do that.
favorite life, I think, would have a few different passions kind of on the go, a little like I like the dynamism of it, moving
Yes.
around, being dynamic and doing different things like growing strawberries, growing mushrooms, doing one-on-one, collaborating on a world. I'm really system focused though. I think my favorite is the system, but no system can really fix itself until the individual family level gets sorted
Well,
out,
that's what I
micro to macro.
yes. The biggest conditioners or programmers of humanity are the family unit and education and
Right.
government, right?
Yeah,
So those systems need to be broken,
absolutely.
like cardboard boxes broken down.
Yeah, like I don't, we'll have to recycle those now. They're not good. We can't really build on those old
I
frameworks
like
anymore.
that.
Yeah, because I got political to the point where I'm like, okay, this is bullshit. Then I got into electoral reform. Then I was an education advocate. So I've gone through all those and going, wow, yeah, like
Yes. You could do
patient-led
anything.
healthcare,
You could do anything.
student-led education. Like it's about
Yes.
personal sovereignty, agency, etc. And all the systems work against that
Yes.
as they stand today. So we know that. And now let's get some teams together and get going on something.
Okay,
But
so
I
let me
love to see a
ask you
human
this.
doing something.
Do you have the networks that you can jump in, like system networks that you can jump in and collaborate?
I would say not yet. I mean, I do have a
Okay.
couple different collaborative groups, but I think we're, yeah, like, another job of mine that I could do, and I'm really saying quite lighthearted, but I say oracle in like oracle
Hmm.
to people in the positions of power. But I mean, that's a tough job. But remember, in a
Holy
lot of our old
smokes.
stories, the king would have
Yes.
a seer or an oracle, and like I just feel like I'd be very well suited because I've been
Wow.
working all through my last decade. Like I'm aware that I was recent enough in that mindset that I remember it. I'm very good at remembering my different mindsets. So I can always go back to a decision and go, oh yeah, in that context, I made that decision. With that mindset, I made that decision. And so now I just want to be a bridge. I really do. Like,
Oh my
but
God.
people,
You
when
know
they're
who
not
you,
willing, yeah, you know
sorry.
what I'm saying.
Yes, you know who you would connect with? The lady I did the interview with, both of them actually, Raven Moonstone. She doesn't consider herself an oracle, but she's got a lot of esoteric abilities. And then Ashton Tulip Campbell,
I know
people,
when you told, I will definitely look into her because I felt it as you were describing her.
yes, people have told her she's an oracle. She hasn't come to that herself, but other
Well,
people have
how do you
told her.
define oracle? I mean, the word, but I think the way I actually tend to want to make new terms in a more science, since the religion of our world is science, let's find sciencey terms to describe these things, right? So,
Oh, that's interesting.
so
Uh,
I'd say instead of oracle, maybe it would just be, yeah, like it's really
Seer.
hard to,
She
there is
says
no word.
also seer. Seer. SEER.
But I guess one way I wonder about putting it is when you think of bandwidth, like you look at someone who's, let's say, Premier Jason Kenney or Doug Ford in Ontario, they've got a narrow bandwidth that they're working with.
Yes.
So
Yes.
why wouldn't you not want to have someone with a very wide bandwidth to help you
Expand
to
yours, to help
expand?
you expand yours.
But I mean, at least to expand your perspective. And like, when you use these analogies, okay, it's like a diamond. There's all these perspectives. They're all true. But I mean, I think some people are so got the power in their hand. I don't know how willing they would be.
To
They,
share.
but at the same time, you never know what's going to happen, But I think what probably is going to happen is new structures of administering for the collective will occur. And I think that it has occurred. People are,
Yes.
there's a movement that I haven't really fully got my mind around, and it is called, I can't remember the name, but anyways, they're kind of forming these councils, and so I do see myself in a position to be on a health council or
Cool.
a whatever council. Like consciousness is the fundamental science, if we're going to talk about any science at all, and we really know the least about it, I think.
It's the
I
invisible
feel,
one, as you said,
yeah,
the invisible one.
yeah, it's not visible, and it's running our world, and we are not consciously aware. So there's a few people who are consciously aware of how to make us unconsciously create for them.
Oh, they
And
feed
so,
off us. They feed
yeah,
off us and our
and there's
energy
that.
and our consciousness, right?
Yeah. Oh, I know. So it's so lovely to talk to you, Ida,
You
and
too.
we
And
had fun.
let me say it right. Angele.
Yeah, and Angele, very English is fine too, but rhyming with Michelle, and I'm good.
Angele, okay. Okay,
Angele,
my
yeah,
dear. Thank you
yes.
so much for your time and your
Thank you.
sharing. And we will do it again if that's okay with you.
I would say yay for that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
cool, cool.
Mwah.
Bye. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Talk
Take
to you again.
care.
Bye.
Bye.